My father convinced my fiancé to leave me for my best friend. He told Ryan that Sophie came from the right kind of family, that she was more sophisticated, more polished, more suitable for a man with ambitions. And Ryan believed him. I still remember the day I found out. I was at Ryan's apartment, waiting for him to get home from work. We'd been engaged for almost 2 years, and I was supposed to meet the wedding planner that evening to finalize our venue. I was looking for his laptop to pull up some photos I'd taken of potential locations when his phone, left charging on the kitchen counter, lit up with a message. It was from Sophie. My Sophie, the woman who'd been my best friend since our freshman year at NYU, who'd helped me move to Paris 5 years ago when I decided to chase my dream of becoming a wedding photographer in the most romantic city in the world. The woman who was supposed to be my maid of honor. The message preview showed just enough to make my stomach drop. Your tux fitting is confirmed for Thursday. I still can't believe this is happening. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she was helping Ryan plan some surprise for me. Maybe she was talking about something else entirely. But my hands were shaking as I picked up his phone. I knew his passcode. We'd never hidden anything from each other. Or so I'd thought. The messages went back 3 months. 3 months of secret conversations, of my father's name appearing again and again, of plans being made behind my back. But it was the photos that destroyed me. Sophie, trying on wedding dresses. Not just any wedding dresses. The ones from the boutique I'd bookmarked, the designs I'd shown Ryan, the exact style I'd dreamed of wearing. The messages made it clear. My father had been meeting with Ryan, taking him to lunch, discussing Ryan's career as a corporate lawyer. Dad had connections through Sophie's family. Her parents owned a prestigious investment firm, the kind of old money, East Coast establishment connections that my father had always wished he had. I was just a photographer. Creative, yes, but not impressive enough. Not the kind of daughter-in-law material that would elevate the family name. Emma's wonderful, my father had apparently told Ryan during one of their lunches, but let's be realistic. She's following a passion, not building a legacy. Sophie understands the world you're trying to enter. She can open doors for you, that Emma simply can't. I sat on Ryan's couch for 3 hours, reading every message, looking at every photo. There were pictures of Sophie and Ryan at dinner with my father. Screenshots of property listings for apartments in Sophie's family's building. Plans for a wedding that was supposed to be mine, just with a different bride. When Ryan came home, he found me there, his phone still in my hands. I watched his face go through a series of expressions. Surprise, guilt, and then something worse. Relief, like he'd been waiting for this moment, waiting for the decision to be made for him. Emma, he started, but I held up my hand. How long? My voice didn't sound like mine. It was hollow, distant, like I was listening to someone else speak. We haven't done anything, he said quickly. I swear, nothing physical has happened. How long has my father been convincing you that I'm not good enough? Ryan ran his hand through his hair. The gesture I'd once found endearing now just making me nauseous. He's not saying you're not good enough. He's saying that Sophie and I are more compatible. On paper. On paper. I laughed. And it came out brittle. And what does Sophie think about all this? Does my best friend think she's more compatible with my fiancé? He had the decency to look ashamed. She was resistant at first. But your father made some good points. About our futures, about the kind of life we could build together. Get out, I said. Emma, please, let's talk about this. Get out. I was screaming now, tears streaming down my face. This is your apartment. I'll get out. I'll get out of all of your lives. I called Sophie from the street outside. She picked up on the second ring, her voice carefully neutral. Hey, did you ever consider telling me? Just once, did you think maybe I deserved to know that you were planning to marry my fiancé? Silence. Then, quietly, I didn't know how to tell you. You didn't know how to tell me, or you didn't want to lose your chance at my father's approval. My father had always loved Sophie. From the moment I'd brought her home during college, he'd been impressed by her pedigree, her manners, her family connections. Everything. I wasn't. All those years you pretended to be my friend, were you just waiting for an opportunity like this? It's not like that. Sophie's voice cracked. I care about you, Emma. But your father's right. Ryan and I make sense together. You have to see that. I don't have to see anything. I ended the call. The next call was to my father. He answered on speaker, and I could hear the clink of glasses in the background. He was at dinner, probably celebrating his successful matchmaking. Emma, I was just about to call you. Were you going to tell me before or after the wedding? A pause. So, did you ever love me, Dad? Or was I always just the disappointing daughter who didn't live up to your standards? Don't be dramatic, Emma. This isn't about love. It's about making smart choices. Ryan is a brilliant young man with a bright future, and Sophie can help him achieve things you simply can't. You're talented, sweetheart, but you're not practical. You chose art over ambition. I chose passion over pretension. There's a difference. You'll understand someday. When you're older, when you've lived a little more, you'll see that I'm trying to help everyone find their best path. Ryan and Sophie will have a wonderful life together, and you'll find someone more suited to your lifestyle. My lifestyle, I repeated. You mean someone less successful? Someone who won't make you look bad by comparison to Sophie's family. I mean someone who understands you. Ryan doesn't. He needs someone sophisticated, polished, someone from the right kind of family. Surely you can see that you and Ryan were never truly compatible. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him what a terrible father he was, how much he'd hurt me. But instead, I just felt tired. Bone deep, soul-crushing tired. You're right, I said quietly. Ryan and I weren't compatible, because I thought love mattered more than connections. I was wrong about a lot of things. I hung up before he could respond. For 3 days, I didn't leave my apartment. I called in sick to my photography jobs, ignored the messages piling up on my phone, and existed in a fog of pain and disbelief. My roommate, Claudette, a fellow photographer I'd met through work, finally forced her way into my room on the 4th day. Enough, she said, pulling open my curtains. I don't know what happened, but enough. I told her everything. She listened, her expression growing darker with every detail. Your father is a monster, she said flatly when I finished. And your friend is not your friend. She was my best friend for 10 years. Non. A best friend does not steal your fiancé. A best friend does not listen to your father trash you and nod along. She is not your friend. She is a vulture. I almost smiled at Claudette's bluntness. I don't know what to do. They're getting married in 6 months. My father is paying for everything. Of course. He's already sent me the invitation. Claudette stared at me. He sent you an invitation to your best friend's wedding to your ex-fiancé. He wrote a note. Said he hopes I can be happy for them. That he'd like me there to show there are no hard feelings. You're not going. No, I agreed. I'm not going. I'm not staying in Paris either. What do you mean? I can't be here anymore. Everywhere I go, I see places Ryan and I went together, and I keep wondering if I'll run into them. I need to leave. Claudette was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Where will you go? Barcelona, maybe. Or Rome. Somewhere I can start over. I chose Barcelona. It was far enough from Paris to feel like a clean break, but close enough that I could still take photography jobs when I needed to. I rented a small studio apartment in the Gothic quarter, with tall windows that let in the golden Spanish light. For the first month, I barely worked. I walked the streets of Barcelona, taking photographs for myself instead of clients. Street musicians in Los Ramblas, the geometric patterns of Gaudi's architecture. The sunset over the Mediterranean. I was relearning how to see beauty without it being tied to someone else's wedding, someone else's happiness. My father called occasionally. I didn't answer. Sophie texted a few times, saying she wanted to explain, that she hoped we could still be friends someday. I blocked her number. Ryan called once, 2 weeks before his wedding. I answered without thinking. Emma, he said, and I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. I wanted to talk to you before you marry my best friend in the wedding we planned together. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen, Ryan? Were you planning to break up with me first, wait a respectable amount of time, and then date Sophie? Or was the plan always for my father to convince you I wasn't good enough? Your father just made me see things clearly. Sophie and I, we have the same goals, the same understanding of what we want from life. And what do you want from life? Money? Status? My father's connections to Sophie's family's investment firm? It's not like that. Yes, it is. And you know what? I'm glad I found out before I married you. Because I would have spent my whole life trying to be someone I'm not, trying to meet standards that were designed to make me fail. Emma, I hope you and Sophie are very happy together. I hope the doors her family opens for you are worth it. I really do. Because if they're not, you gave up something real for something transactional, and that's something you'll have to live with. I hung up and cried for the last time over Ryan. After that, I promised myself I was done looking back. 6 months. After moving to Barcelona, I got a call from a high-end event planning company. They needed a photographer for a book launch party at a luxury hotel on the beach. The author was some French writer who just hit the international bestseller list with a thriller series. They wanted someone who could capture both the glamour of the event and the intimate moments. I almost said no. Book launches weren't my specialty. But I needed the money, and the pay was good. The author's name was Julien Moreau. I'd heard of him vaguely, knew his books were popular, but I'd never read them. When I arrived at the venue to scout locations, he was already there, arguing with his publicist about the setup. I don't need a throne, he was saying in French, gesturing at an elaborate chair positioned in front of a backdrop. I'm not a king. I'm a writer. Can't I just stand? His publicist, a harried-looking woman in her 50s, was not having it. Julien, the publisher paid for this setup. You'll sit, you'll smile, you'll sign books. That's the job. I watched him run a hand through his dark hair, exasperated, and something about the genuine frustration on his face made me smile. He caught my eye and switched to Spanish. Are you here to tell me I need to sit on the throne too? I'm just the photographer, I said. I don't care if you stand, sit, or hang from the chandelier. I'll make it work. He grinned and I felt something shift in my chest. Not attraction, not yet, just recognition. He was tired of pretense, tired of performing. I understood that. The event was a success. I got shots of Julien with fans, Julien signing books, Julien looking exhausted but genuine. At the end of the night, as I was packing up my equipment, he approached me. Can I see some of the photos? I showed him my camera screen, scrolling through the images. He studied them quietly. You made me look human, he said finally. You are human. My publisher would disagree. He smiled. Most photographers try to make me look mysterious or brooding. Very serious thriller writer. You captured me looking annoyed at the throne. It was a ridiculous throne. It was... He paused. I have another event next month. Would you be interested? That was how it started. More book events, more photography. Julien was easy to work with, quick to laugh, comfortable in his skin despite the fame. We'd grab coffee after shoots, talking about Barcelona, about our work, about everything except our pasts. It took 3 months before he mentioned he'd been married. We were walking along Barcelona beach after a signing event, both of us exhausted and hungry. Julien bought us paper cones of fried fish from a beachside vendor, and we sat on the sand, watching the waves. I was married for 7 years, he said suddenly. We divorced 3 years ago. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. She wanted me to be someone different. More serious, more literary. Less commercial. When the thriller series took off, when it became popular, she saw it as selling out. Never mind that it paid the bills, that it let me write full-time. It wasn't what she'd signed up for. That must have been hard. It was. But it taught me something important. You can't build a life with someone who needs you to be someone you're not. He looked at me. What about you? What brought you to Barcelona? I told him. Not everything. Not right away. But the basics. The betrayal, the escape, the rebuilding. Your father sounds like a piece of work, Julien said when I finished. He has very specific ideas about what success looks like. And I've never fit that mold. Good. Molds are boring. I laughed, and it felt good. Natural. I realized I hadn't laughed like that since before I'd found the messages on Ryan's phone. Our relationship developed slowly, carefully. Neither of us was in a rush. We were both healing from something, both rebuilding ourselves. But somewhere between the book events and the beach walks and the late-night conversations about art and ambition and what it meant to live an authentic life, I fell in love with him. A year after we met, Julien's latest book hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. The same week, my photography was featured in a major European wedding magazine, a spread about destination weddings in Spain that had taken me months to shoot and edit. We celebrated at a small restaurant in Elborn, just the two of us. I have something to tell you, Julian said over dessert. I braced myself. Even now, even after everything, part of me still expected betrayal. My daughter wants to meet you. I blinked. Your daughter? From my marriage. Claire. She's 13. She lives with her mother in Lyon, but she's visiting next month, and she asked if she could meet the woman I've been talking about. You talk about me? Constantly, apparently. Enough that my ex-wife called to ask if I was serious about someone. He reached across the table to take my hand. I told her yes. Very serious. Meeting Claire was terrifying. But she was funny and sharp and looked at me with her father's eyes, assessing but kind. By the end of the weekend, she was showing me her favorite books and asking if I'd take her photo for her Instagram. She likes you, Julian said after he'd put her on the train back to Lyon. I like her too. Good. Because I'm not doing this halfway, Emma. I'm not that kind of man. If we're building something, we're building it to last. I thought about Ryan, about how easily he'd been convinced to leave. About how love had once felt conditional, dependent on my ability to be someone I wasn't. I'm not that kind of woman either, I said. 2 years after fleeing Paris, I was thriving in Barcelona. My photography business was booming. Julian had sold the film rights to his series. We'd moved in together. A bright apartment near Park Qley with space for both his writing desk and my photography studio. We talked about marriage but weren't in any rush. We'd both learned that love wasn't about timelines or other people's expectations. And then my father called. I'd changed my number twice, but he always found me. This time I answered. Emma. Finally. I've been trying to reach you for months. What do you want, Dad? I'm turning 70 next month. I'm having a party in Paris, at the Plaza Athénée. I'd like you to be there. Why? Because you're my daughter. Because family is important. Because I'd like a chance to see you. I almost hung up. But something in his voice made me pause. He sounded older, tired in a way I'd never heard before. Is Mom going to be there? I asked. My mother had divorced my father 8 years ago, tired of his controlling nature, his obsession with status. Yes. She's flying in from London. Emma, I know things between us have been difficult, but I'm asking you to come. Please. I looked at Julian, who was watching me from across the room, concern on his face. I'll think about it, I said, and ended the call. You don't have to go, Julian said immediately. I know. But you're considering it. I sank onto the couch. I don't know why. Part of me wants to see him, to see if he's changed at all. Part of me wants to prove I'm fine. That I built a life without his approval. And part of me just wants closure. Julian sat next to me, pulling me against his side. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Even if it means flying to Paris and dealing with my toxic father? Especially then. We flew to Paris 3 weeks later. I'd bought a dress for the occasion, something elegant but not trying too hard. Julian wore a simple suit, the kind of understated expensive that came from having money but not needing to show it. My stomach was in knots as we walked into the Plaza Athénée's event room. The party was already in full swing, classic French elegance everywhere I looked, crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, waiters in white gloves, very much my father's style. I saw my mother first. She rushed over, pulling me into a tight hug. Emma, darling, you look wonderful. She held me at arm's length, studying me, truly wonderful. Happier than I've seen you in years. I am happy, Mom. She turned to Julienne, and I watched her eyes widen slightly in recognition. My mother was an avid reader. Julienne Moreau. The author? He smiled, shaking her hand. Guilty. It's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Chen. Miss Chen now, she corrected with a smile. And the pleasure is mine. I loved your last book. Couldn't put it down. We chatted for a few minutes before my mother leaned in, lowering her voice. Your father's over by the bar. He doesn't know you're here yet. Emma, I should warn you, Sophie and Ryan are here too. My chest tightened. Of course they are. I can run interference if you'd like. I've been avoiding them all evening. No, I said, surprising myself. It's fine. I'm fine. And the strange thing was, I meant it. I was fine. I had Julian's hand in mine. A life I loved, work that fulfilled me. Whatever happened next, I could handle it. I saw my father before he saw me. He was holding court near the bar, surrounded by colleagues and friends. He'd aged since I'd last seen him, more gray at his temples, lines deeper around his eyes. But he still had that same commanding presence, that same certainty that he knew best. And then he turned, and his eyes met mine. I watched his expression cycle through surprise, confusion, and something that might have been regret. He excused himself from his group and walked over, his gaze flickering between me and Julian. "Emma," he said. "You came. Happy birthday, Dad." He looked at Julian, and I saw the wheels turning, the recognition clicking into place. My father had always prided himself on knowing who was who in the world of success. "Julian Moreau," my father said slowly. "The writer." "That's right," Julian said evenly. "You must be Emma's father. She's told me a lot about you." "I bet she has," my father's expression seemed to say. He turned back to me. "Can we talk? Privately? Anything you have to say, you can say here." He glanced around, aware of the attention we were drawing. "Fine. Emma, I owe you an apology. The way I handled things with Ryan and Sophie was wrong. I thought I was helping everyone, but I see now that I hurt you deeply." "You didn't think you were helping me," I said quietly. "You thought you were correcting a mistake. Your mistake. For having a daughter who didn't meet your standards. That's not." He stopped, seemed to reconsider. "You're right. I wanted you to be someone you're not. I wanted you to fit into a world that I valued, regardless of what you wanted. And now? What's changed?" He looked at Julian again, and I saw it. The calculation. The assessment of worth based on success and status. My father had always been able to recognize power and influence. "Now I see that you've done very well for yourself," he said carefully. "No, Dad. I did well for myself before Julian. I built a successful photography business on my own terms. I'm happy, fulfilled, living the life I want. That has nothing to do with who I'm dating and everything to do with me finally being free of your expectations." Before he could respond, I heard a sharp intake of breath behind me. I turned to see Sophie and Ryan standing a few feet away, both frozen mid-step. Sophie's hand was on Ryan's arm, a massive diamond ring catching the light. They'd been about to approach my father but had clearly overheard our conversation. Sophie looked the same but different. Still beautiful, still polished, but there was a tightness around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Ryan had gained weight, looked tired. They both stared at Julian with the kind of recognition that came from seeing his face on bestseller lists and in magazines. "Emma," Sophie breathed. "I didn't know you'd be here." "Sophie." "Ryan." I was surprised by how steady my voice was. "Congratulations on your marriage." Ryan's jaw was tight. "Thank you. I heard you moved to Barcelona." "I did. Best decision I ever made." There was an awkward pause. I could see Sophie doing the math, looking between me and Julian, trying to figure out the connection. "This is Julian," I said simply. "My partner." "The writer," Ryan said, and there was something strange in his voice. "Your series is brilliant. I'm a huge fan." "Thank you," Julian said politely, his hand warm on my back. My father cleared his throat. "Well, this is wonderful. Everyone together. Maybe we should all." "We were just leaving, actually," I interrupted. "Julian and I have dinner reservations." "We didn't, but I was done. I'd come, I'd seen my father. I'd proven to myself that I was whole and healed. I didn't need to stay for the awkward reconciliation my father clearly wanted to orchestrate." "Emma, wait," my father started, but my mother appeared at my elbow. "Let them go," she said firmly. "Emma, call me tomorrow? I'd love to have lunch before you leave Paris." "I'd like that, Mom." As Julian and I walked toward the exit, I heard Sophie's voice, pitched just loud enough to carry. "She's with Julian Moreau." "How did she?" "I mean, she's just a photographer." I didn't turn around, but I felt Julian's hand squeeze mine gently. "Want to go back and correct her?" he murmured. "No. She'll figure it out eventually." We made it outside before I started laughing. Not bitter or angry laughter, but genuine amusement. "That was something," Julian said. Their faces I managed between laughs. "When they saw you, like they'd been slapped. I'm more interested in your father's face. He was definitely recalculating your worth based on my tax bracket." "That's exactly what he was doing." I sobered slightly. "I'm sorry. This is probably not how you wanted to spend your evening in Paris. Are you kidding?" This was fascinating. Very thriller-worthy. The betrayed woman returns triumphant, her enemies vanquished by her sheer happiness and success. I didn't vanquish anyone. No. You just moved on. Which is so much more powerful. We walked along the Seine, the lights of Paris reflecting off the water. My city, but not my city anymore. I'd outgrown it. Did you see Ryan's face when you mentioned Barcelona? Julian asked. What about it? He looked devastated. Not about losing you to me, but about losing you, period. I think he's realized what he gave up. I thought about that. 2 years ago, the idea of Ryan regretting his choice would have filled me with satisfaction. Now, I just felt neutral about it. It doesn't matter, I said. He made his choice. He has to live with it. What about Sophie? Think she regrets it? I think Sophie got exactly what she wanted. My father's approval, status, the right kind of marriage. Whether that makes her happy is her problem, not mine. The next morning, my mother and I met for lunch at a cafe in the Marais. She looked lighter than I'd seen her in years, happy in her post-divorce life in London. I'm proud of you, she said over salad. Not because of Julian, though he seems wonderful, but because you walked away from toxicity and built something real. I learned it from you, I said. You left Dad when you realized he'd never see you as anything but an accessory. It took me too long. I should have left years before I did. She paused. I should have protected you better from his expectations. You did your best. And I turned out okay. Better than okay. She smiled. Emma, I heard through the grapevine that Sophie and Ryan are having problems. I don't want to know. Fair. But if you did want to know, I'd tell you that Ryan's career isn't what he hoped it would be. Sophie's family connections didn't open as many doors as your father promised. And apparently, they're both miserable. I sipped my coffee, considering. A year ago, this information would have felt like vindication. Now, it just felt sad. I hope they figure it out, I said and meant it. My mother studied me. You really have moved on, haven't you? I really have. I spent so long angry at Dad. At them. At myself for not being enough. And then one day I woke up in Barcelona. And the anger was just gone. I was too busy being happy. That's the best revenge, my mother said quietly. It's not revenge, it's just life. A good one. We finished lunch, and I promised to visit her in London soon. As I walked back to the hotel where Julian was waiting, I felt lighter. I'd faced my past, and it had no power over me anymore. That evening, Julian and I flew back to Barcelona. As the plane took off, I looked down at Paris, the city where I'd been engaged, where I'd been betrayed, where I'd lost myself. And then I turned to Julian, who was reading a manuscript, his reading glasses perched on his nose, completely absorbed. Thank you, I said. He looked up. For what? For coming with me. For being exactly who you are. For not needing me to be anyone but who I am. He set down the manuscript and pulled me close. Thank you for letting me in. For trusting me after what you'd been through. Easiest thing I ever did. And it was true. Loving Julian, building a life with him, it had been effortless. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. 6 months later, Julian proposed on the beach in Barcelona, the same spot where we'd had our first honest conversation about our pasts. There was no elaborate setup, no performative romance, just him, me, and a simple question. I don't need the wedding to prove anything, I told him. I don't need it to be big or impressive. I know, he said, but I want to marry you anyway. Not for anyone else. Just for us. We got married in a small ceremony on the beach, just Claire, my mother, and a handful of close friends. I wore a simple dress and took my own wedding photos with a timer. It was perfect. I didn't invite my father. He sent a card anyway, with a check I didn't cash. My mother told me later that he'd asked about me, wanted to know how I was doing. What did you tell him? I asked. That you're happy. That you're thriving. That you built a beautiful life without his approval or permission. And what did he say? He said he wished he'd been a better father. She paused. I think he might actually mean it this time. Maybe, I said. But it doesn't change anything. I don't need his approval anymore. I don't need his apology. I just need him to respect my boundaries. And if he can't, then he's the one who loses out. Not me. Sometimes I think about that day in Ryan's apartment. Finding those messages, having my world shatter. If someone had told me then that it was the best thing that could have happened to me, I would have thought they were crazy. But they would have been right. Because losing Ryan, losing Sophie, losing my father's approval, it forced me to find myself. To build a life based on what I wanted, not what others expected. To understand that love shouldn't require me to be smaller, quieter, less ambitious or more polished. I found a partner who celebrated my passion for photography, who understood the value of choosing art over expectation. I found work that fulfilled me, not because it impressed anyone, but because it was mine. And I learned that the best revenge isn't proving anything to the people who hurt you. It's building a life so full and rich and joyful that you forget to care what they think at all. Sometimes my mother sends me updates. Sophie and Ryan divorced after 4 years of marriage. Ryan's career never took off the way he hoped. My father had a minor heart attack and has been trying to reconnect with me, but I'm not ready for that yet. Maybe someday. Maybe never. I'm okay with either outcome. What matters is that I'm happy. Really, truly happy. Not the performative happiness of someone trying to prove a point, but the quiet, steady happiness of someone who knows exactly who they are and isn't apologizing for it. Julian's writing career continues to soar. My photography has taken me to 12 countries this year. Claire is talking about studying photography in college, which fills me with pride. We're talking about buying a house outside Barcelona, somewhere with space for both of us to work and a room for Claire when she visits. I'm 32 now. Sometimes I look back at 29-year-old me, devastated in Ryan's apartment, and I want to tell her that it gets better. That the pain she's feeling, as real and crushing as it is temporary. That she's stronger than she knows. But I also know she wouldn't have believed me. She had to walk through the fire herself. She had to learn that she was enough, not despite her choices but because of them. My father wanted me to be someone else. Someone more suitable, more polished, more aligned with his vision of success. And in trying to force that transformation, he accidentally pushed me toward becoming exactly who I was always meant to be. For that, in a strange way, I'm grateful. Not grateful enough to forgive him, necessarily. But grateful enough to acknowledge that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you ends up being the thing that saves you. I don't need my father's approval anymore. I don't need Sophie's friendship or Ryan's love or anyone's validation. I just need to keep being Emma. The photographer who chose passion over prestige. The woman who rebuilt herself in a new city. The partner who found love based on authenticity rather than expectation. That's more than enough.